Morning. In the last class, we were discussing about how to achieve baseband transmission over band limited channels. And we saw how a source generating any binary digital signal or baseband signal can be passed through a transmitter. We'll consider that as a filter. So transmitter filter with transfer function ht of f, and that signal is then sent on the channel. Channel can also be treated as a band limited filter with transfer function hc of f, and we know Gaussian noise gets added in the channel. Okay, either we can consider that or even we can ignore that. In the last time when we considered in the last class, we ignored this, and then we, after noise getting added, it will be received at the receiver. The receiver can also be considered as a filter with transfer function hr of f, and the final signal V of t, which is obtained at the output of the receiver, should be sampled at right interval. So we'll sample it at a proper interval. Tm is equal to m times t, where t is the time period of the baseband pulse and m is an integer. And then we'll set a threshold value in the last block. If the value is greater than 0, it will be treated as binary 1, and if it is less than 0, it will be treated as binary 0. All this we saw. We wrote the pulse as, we considered the pulse as a waveform, a rectangular pulse train we considered. G of, actually instead of considering delta, we considered G of t minus it, and then we took the output of the transmitter filter to be this. And finally, we could prove all this. And at the receiver, we considered the received pulse train to be P of t or P of t minus kt. This is the receiving filter output, V of t. Noise, I told you, we can either consider it or we can ignore noise. Anyway, after we did all this, we could show that in this equation, we have the desired signal along with intersymbol interference. So we have a part of the signal which accounts to other pulses coming in the time period of the required pulse or the desired signal. So this is the desired signal, and there are other pulses which will come into effect within the same time period, and those pulses act like interference for the required pulse, and hence the name ISI. And since we have considered noise here, we get a part of the signal to be noise also, the Gaussian noise. So this is the sampled receiver output at sample time Tm is equal to m times t. Now, let's consider what is eye diagram. Eye diagram is a method of representing a digital received signal or any digital binary waveform, so that we can measure so many different parameters and we get to know what is the effect of noise on a given signal. So whenever a noisy signal is passed through let's say whenever the signal is passed through the channel, it gets affected by noise. So whenever that noisy signal is received, what happens and how we can measure the amount of noise, jitter, and various other parameters, that is obtained by what we try to do while drawing this eye pattern is, we are going to overlap the binary signals over one time period. Generally, we consider one time period, and we try to overlap all the received binary signals over that time period. And usually what the horizontal plates of the CRO will be connected to the sawtooth or ramp wave, and the vertical plates will be connected to this binary signal which is being received. So as you receive the binary signal, you keep overlapping them over the same time period. So you will obtain a pattern which resembles the human eye. Hence, this is known as the eye diagram or the eye pattern. So you will obtain a pattern which looks similar to that of a human eye. As you can see here, see here, this shape, as you can make out in the center, either here or here, exactly resembles that of a human eye, with this looking like the pupil and all that. So because of that, this pattern is also called as eye pattern or eye diagram. Then we measure so many important parameters in this eye pattern or eye diagram. We will try to overlap the signals over one time period. So I'll take a duration of one time period and I'm just going to overlap all the received binary signals within the same time period. That's what I was showing you. Ideally, it should have overlapped on itself. It should have intersected like this. You should have got a proper eye pattern. A binary 0 will be represented like this. This is the received signal for a binary 0. A binary 1 will be like this, a positive voltage. So whenever I receive a binary 1, it should overlap on the same waveform. Whenever you receive a binary 0, that should overlap on the same waveform. So you will see, actually what you should see is a perfect overlap of all the received signals. You should see a single thick line like this in a eye pattern. But normally what happens, we have timing delays or jitter between the received pulses. One pulse starts off at the right instant, another pulse starts off with a delay. We also have what? Noise affecting the signal. We have channel, let's say channel distortion, or the what do you say, the limitation of the channel. It's a band limited channel, so that limitation of the channel will also affect the signal. There are so many things affecting the signal, hence causing a non-overlapped eye pattern like this. You'll see one signal will be here, another signal may be here, another signal will be here. So you'll see the eye pattern having non-overlapping, or slightly there is a gap between the different received binary ones and zeros. And within all that, once you have the total eye pattern, you will measure the width of the eye, the opening of the eye, or the height of the eye. All that will tell us what is the signal to noise ratio. So the higher the opening of the eye, the better the signal to noise ratio. So this opening should be wider and higher. So I should have a proper opening lengthwise and breadthwise, then you receive the signal correctly. But if this opening of the eye is very small, I have so many overlaps like this. If the opening of the eye becomes very small, then the SNR is very less and it is difficult to receive the signal correctly. There are more chances of error. Okay, please remember that. Difficult for proper reception of the signal and higher chances of error whenever we receive what? Whenever the eye opening is very small. So if the eye opening is very small, it indicates that the signal to noise ratio is not sufficient or it's not high enough, and that is because of the effect of noise, the effect of jitter, the effect of the non-linearity in the channel and all that. Everything causes the eye opening to become smaller and smaller, both in width and height. And with that, we can measure the various parameters. We have all seen that this eye diagram includes a plot of the waveform on a CRO for whenever we apply the received binary pulses to the vertical deflecting plates of the CRO and the sawtooth waveform to the horizontal deflecting plates of the CRO, then the plot what we get is called as the eye diagram, and it appears as shown. And remember, normally we take this plot with overlapping signals, the signals being overlapped over one time period. So we'll consider one time period to be from here to here. So the signals are getting overlapped over one time period in order to get a plot that looks similar to the human eye, hence the name eye diagram. So there are many measurements which can be done using this eye diagram. Typically, eye diagram is used to check the effect of noise on the received signal. So ideally, as I was telling you, the signals should overlap. So all the received signals should have overlapped into this pattern. Say all ones here, all zeros. So all zeros, and it shouldn't be very thick also. I should have got everything overlap like this without this differentiation. You see the differentiation, different signals will have different path, or there is always a change. So this is the ideal condition of the eye diagram, whereas these are the practical conditions. Let's have a look of what are the various measurements which can have with eye diagram. The first one is which is the best sampling instant. Where should I sample this center point wherever the opening of the eye is maximum? We can consider this part, the vertical part, to be the opening of the eye, and this horizontal width to be the width of the eye. So when the eye is open, this height opening as well as the width both should be good. And the best sampling instant will be at the center of this eye opening. So let me say this point is the best sampling instant. That is where the receiver should take a sample of the received binary data. The binary waveform, whether it is a 1 or 0, can be understood correctly or can be decoded correctly if we sample at this center. Okay, so this is the best sampling instant. And here you can see there is a difference. The signal received may be this or this. So this difference indicates distortion at the sampling instant. Okay, so what are the things you should note during measurements? So what is the distortion at the sampling instant? You will see. Then you will also, as I told you, you will see the opening of the eye, the height, let's say the height as well as the width, height as well as width for the eye opening will be measured. So the amount of opening of the eye will be checked through this height and width. And then this height will be measured. Let's say the height from here to here. Okay, that constitutes something. It is due to the noise. So your noise margin should be somewhere in the midpoint so that the noise can be removed. And other than that, this measurement here indicates distortion at the zero crossings, distortion at zero crossings. Even that is important. I'll tell you what all this means once I tell you the significance of all these measurements. And other than that, the slope here should also be measured, which indicates, let's say, sensitivity to timing error. So sensitivity to timing error is a measurement which can be obtained from the slope of this signal. So these are the various measurements, and also we saw which would be the best sampling instant that can be taken. Now coming to the opening of the eye, as I was telling you, wherever the eye opening is maximum, their SNR is highest. So you get the best signal to noise ratio at the point where the eye opening would be maximum. Okay. See, here we have shown the most open part of the eye. Can you see in this diagram? The most open part of the eye corresponds to best signal to noise ratio. That open part can correspond to the width, and it can also correspond to the height. So what would be the signal to noise ratio at the sampling point? Remember, this central dotted line indicates the sampling point, and the height from here to the center indicates what is the SNR at the sampling point. Okay, so we get the best SNR wherever this opening is highest. Opening corresponds to height as well as width. Okay, it should be maximum. Then comes the time variation between the zero crossings. As I told you, this point, what we showed here also, the time variation between zero crossings is what is shown here. It is a measurement of the amount of timing jitter. We call it as the amount of timing jitter, and that can be measured through this. And the amount of distortion which is set by signal to noise ratio is given by this measurement. See, one waveform shows the maximum output at this point, the other waveform gives the maximum. So this distortion is a measure of the difference in S to N ratio. The distortion due to S by N ratio is given by this difference. Okay. So these are the various measurements. Along with this, let me show. So as I told you, the eye diagram features, how do you interpret the measurements? The eye opening, that is the height, peak to peak, talks in terms of the additive noise in the signal. So if I measure from peak to peak, from this peak to this peak, if you measure, it is a measure of noise in the signal. Then the overshoot or undershoot talks about the peak distortion due to what? So if you measure the overshoot is this one, or sorry, this is undershoot and this is overshoot. That is a measure of peak distortion due to interruptions in the signal path. So due to additional interruptions in the path of the signal, band limited channel, noise added to the channel, so on, you'll see that overshoot. So overshoot is this height, increase in this height, and undershoot is this one. This is undershoot and this is overshoot. Okay. And the width of the eye is because of the timing synchronization and jitter effects. So this width should be as high as possible, and this difference between the zero crossings is a measure of the timing synchronization and jitter effects. Eye closure is a measure of the intersymbol interference or the additive noise. So when it comes to the closing of the eye, the lesser this gap. So the opening is bigger, the closing, it will be smaller. This gap and this gap reduces. So the smaller this gap, ISI effect will be higher. So these are the various measurements with respect to the eye diagram or the eye pattern which we are going to consider normally. Move on to the next. Next, what we have to see is, we said, I already showed you that when in the receiver output, along with the desired signal, we have another signal which indicates overlapping of the, so if this is the required or desired signal, we have these signals to be overlapping of the successive symbols with the desired signal. That is what this part indicates. it indicates overlap of the other neighboring symbols with the required symbol, or it is a measure of the inter-symbol interference. Okay. So the inter-symbol interference is caused, and that inter-symbol interference we showed mainly occurs because of the three filters. We said the transmitter can also act like a filter, the channel filter, the receiver filter, and we did it with the absence of noise. Today I showed you with presence of noise also. It only causes the same two signals, the desired signal, the ISI, along with the noise added whenever we show Gaussian noise added to the signal in the channel. So you have three terms now. Instead of two terms which we got in the previous class, we have a third term that corresponds to Gaussian noise. So now, since ISI has already occurred, how do we minimize this ISI? So how to minimize the ISI? We have to choose the transmitter and receiver filters in such a way that they shape the received pulse function. So they give a correct shape to the pulse function, which will eliminate or minimize the ISI between the adjacent pulses. So if we can minimize this ISI by giving a correct or proper shape to the transmitted and received pulses, then the signal degradation will not be much, and you'll have a wider eye opening if you try to measure the eye diagram. Okay, so the performance on the link will also be fine when we try to shape the pulses. So please remember, how do I minimize ISI? ISI can be minimized by pulse shaping at both transmitter as well as receiver. So by pulse shaping, we can minimize the ISI at both transmitter and receiver. Let's see some of the optimal shapes to minimize ISI. So the signal design for a band limited channel to have zero ISI, the first one which we consider is the Nyquist pulse shaping. So the Nyquist condition for zero ISI for the pulse shape P of t. If I have to make ISI minimum or zero, we'll use the first condition as the Nyquist condition. And what is this Nyquist condition? The Nyquist condition for the required pulse shape states that P of nt, we normally used to consider the pulse as P of nt. I used to generally talk of it as a rectangular pulse because by using one of the waveform coding techniques, we used to consider a sequence of rectangular pulses to transmit binary data. So the shape of this rectangular pulse or the shape of the pulse we'll define in this manner to obtain zero ISI. What does it tell us? It says P of nt should be 1 when n is equal to 0, and it should be 0 for n not equal to 0. So what does this mean? This when the pulse is 1 at n is equal to 0. So just see, when n is equal to 0, the magnitude of the pulse is 1 and it is 0 at all other points. So this is nothing but it is an impulse. We are talking of an impulse signal delta of t normally through this definition. But anyway, for now, we can just keep it as per definition. This pulse exists and its value is 1 only at n is equal to 0, and its value is 0 at n not equal to 0. So let's consider in the frequency domain what happens. This can also be written as a summation of P of f plus k by t. So this k by t can be written as k f naught. If I take 1 by t as f naught, I can write this as P of f plus k times f naught and summation for k ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity. This should be a constant according to the Nyquist condition to obtain zero ISI. So Nyquist states that either you consider an impulse which has value 1 at n is equal to 0 and value 0 elsewhere at all other sampling points. Only at the required desired point it should have a value 1, and at all other sampling points, which is an integer multiple of the time period. Remember, we are going to sample the signal. If I take a sample at t, next I'll take a sample at 2t, next I'll take a sample at 3t. So I'll be taking samples at integer multiples of the time period. Okay. And when we are taking samples at integer multiples of the time period, what happens is that this ISI, if we don't want ISI to affect, then you have to define a pulse which will have a value 0 at all other sampling points. So the value of, I should consider something like this. What happens? This is the sampling point, its value is 1. And in the next sampling point, say here, if I'm sampling here, at all sampling points other than 0, this is n is equal to 0, this is n is equal to 1, n is equal to 2. I'm showing you an example which pulse can satisfy this. Can you tell me what pulse shape is this? Which pulse shape has the value 1 at n is equal to 0 and it can take the value at it can take the value 0 at other points. One is impulse, and the closest to representing an impulse practically is a sync shape. A sync pulse shape is very close, which will be used to approximate an impulse practically. Please remember that. So what we are trying to do is, we are trying to define a condition which tells us that the given pulse should have maximum value 1 at 0, and if it is sampled at other points, it should become 0. So at all other sample points here, n is equal to 2, n is equal to 3, at all other sample points, that pulse value should be 0. Then it would lead to 0 ISI. When I'm sampling here I have a different pulse. I'll have a second pulse, but the interference coming from the first pulse is 0. For the second pulse, I'm sampling at this point. Are you getting what I'm trying to tell here? See, for this pulse, we are taking the sample here, and the neighboring pulse should pass through 0 at the sampling instant. When I am sampling here at the center of the pulse to obtain what is the value of this pulse, the neighboring pulses which is coming from both sides should pass through 0 at the point when I am sampling the required pulse. Then that will mean there is no intersymbol interference from the neighbors. So if you can choose a pulse shape which will give you maximum at the required, but from the neighboring pulse, those neighboring pulses will pass through 0 at the exact sampling instant. So whenever you are sampling for this pulse, so this is the sample time for this pulse, and at this point the neighboring pulses are exactly passing through 0. So when this happens, then we'll surely get 0 ISI, and that is possible if we use a sync pulse shape, which is a very close approximation of the impulse practically. So please remember, an impulse can be realized using a sync shape practically very often. So with this above condition or definition for the pulse shape, the receiver output will overcome the ISI. So you see the receiver output had three terms, AM P of 0 plus the second term which represented the interference coming from the neighboring pulses. So what are we trying to do? We are making the amplitude of these pulses, neighboring pulses at the sampling point as 0. So I don't have, I am taking a sample at this point. At this point, the neighboring pulses will pass through 0. So there is no amplitude contribution. The amplitude contribution due to the neighboring pulses will become 0. So this whole term will reduce to 0. I have only the first term, and due to noise, white Gaussian noise in the channel, I have the last term. So what will happen at the receiver now? After sampling at the correct instant, V of Tm will be equal to Am, which is the required amplitude pulse. Instead of showing this P of 0, we have considered P of 0 is 1. That's what we stated here. Yes or no? See, P of Nt is 1 when n is equal to 0, which means P of 0 value is 1. So, Am into 1, it would be the first term, and the last term would turn out to be the noise due to the channel white Gaussian noise. So N naught of Tm. Again, if you consider a noiseless channel, this term can be eliminated. Hence, the Nyquist condition is an ideal solution for obtaining zero ISI. So the Nyquist first method for eliminating ISI is to use this definition. This is in the frequency domain. It is similar to what we have defined in the time domain. The pulse signal should have the value 1 for the complete frequency range less than 1 by 2t. So here, rather than considering at one instant of time, we are considering it to be present. So it has a rectangular shape like this. It should have the value 1. We are thinking of it as a rectangular pulse, which should have the value 1 in what region? In the region that this variable f will be greater than minus 1 by 2t and less than 1 by 2t. So t is the time period. 1 by 2t represents the frequency for half the time period. Anyway, so this is, please remember, Nyquist's first method for eliminating ISI is to use a pulse of this shape. If I have this kind of definition in the frequency domain, in the time domain, as I told you before, it corresponds to a sync pulse. Remember, a rectangular pulse and sync pulse are Fourier transform pairs. We have done this before also. So, if I have rectangular pulse in frequency domain, its corresponding time domain representation would be a sync pulse. Vice versa is also true. If you have a sync pulse in time domain, its Fourier transform would be a rectangular pulse. So, according to the first method of Nyquist, the pulse shape should be a rectangular shape of value 1 within this given time period, and that will correspond to the actual pulse being a sync pulse. I told you a sync is one of the closest approximation to an impulse. So sync t by t is defined as sine pi t by t divided by pi t by t. Now, what is the bandwidth of this? This is also known as a brick wall filter. Another name for this is a brick wall filter. The bandwidth B0 is 1 by 2t, and which means it is at half rate. So if 1 by t corresponds to the rate Rs, 1 by 2t corresponds to half the rate, and this is known as Nyquist bandwidth. So the bandwidth required for correct pulse shaping for 0 ISI B0 is 1 by 2 times t, which would be defined by half the pulse rate or half the symbol rate Rs by 2. So the minimum transmission bandwidth for 0 ISI is this B0. If I have a filter which does not give me at least this much of bandwidth, then there is no possibility to have zero ISI. To have zero ISI, the filter should have minimum bandwidth equal to 1 by 2T. Okay, so channel with bandwidth B0 can support maximum transmission rate of 2 times B0 symbols per second. So please remember, the highest transmission rate would be 2 B0 symbols per second on any channel. So how do we achieve this or acquire this Nyquist condition? So the challenges for designing such a pulse shape, as denoted, P of t should have this sink shape and P of f should have the rectangular shape. What are the challenges? First thing, P of f is physically unrealizable due to the abrupt transitions at plus or minus B0. So you can see here clearly, if I consider this as minus B0 and this as plus B0, this region, there is a sudden jump from 1 to 0, a sudden transition or an abrupt transition happening from 1 to 0. This is not possible practically. So please remember, it's not possible to have abrupt transitions at plus or minus B0. And another thing is this P of t, which is the sink pulse wave, it decays slowly for large time. So what happens is it results in little margin of error in sampling times in the receiver. So ideally we said this pulse shape should account for zero ISI, but because for a large time period, for a large time t, if I am taking for a longer time t, the decay of this sink pulse will become slow. So as I told you, this should resemble an impulse. It should rise and fall very fast. Okay, sudden increase and decrease. But it becomes slower and slower. This falling rate becomes slower if t is large. So that means there will be overlap with the neighboring pulses and it will lead to error. To overcome that ISI completely, it should have a quick falling rate. So you can see here, very clearly you can see, if P of t is maximum at this point, P of t minus t, the shifted version, you see what is happening at the sampling point here. I'm going to sample the second pulse at its maximum. The first pulse is passing through 0 at the sampling point exactly. And that means there is zero intersymbol interference. I am going to take the sample at this point to find out what this pulse is. So I will get to know this pulse is a 1 if the neighboring pulses have passed through 0 in spite of overlapping. So this is possible and there won't be any error if we have the ideal pulse shape, but it's difficult to get that ideal shape. This demands accurate sample point timing. So there should be perfect synchronization between transmitter and receiver. The receiver should know where exactly it should sample. Okay. And that is one of the major challenges. Getting perfect synchronization between transmitter and receiver pulses and getting to know where exactly you should start the sampling. After that, it will be integer multiples of that point. But how exactly or which point exactly you start taking sample is important. Inaccuracy in the symbol timing is referred to as timing jitter. I already showed you that timing jitter will cause this gap in the eye diagram. In the eye pattern, this width or this gap is caused mainly because of this inaccuracy in symbol timing, which is referred to as timing jitter. Okay, so the Nyquist pulse shaping, which talks about the sink shape for the actual pulse. This sink shape is the closest approximation to the impulse. Remember, the sink pulse is said to be the closest approximation to the impulse. And if we can get this sink shape correctly in the time domain, you will get a perfect rectangular shape in the frequency domain for that sync pulse, and then ISI can be 0. But as already mentioned, this is the ideal solution. Therefore, the practical solution would be the raised cosine spectrum. So the ideal solution is the Nyquist condition or Nyquist criterion, which talks about the sync pulse. The practical solution is the raised cosine spectrum. You have heard, and I think you have done the raised cosine spectrum in the lab. So what is this raised cosine spectrum? It is interesting to see in this raised cosine spectrum, we will divide the representation of the pulse P of f. See, in both the cases, we have defined P of f first in the frequency domain, and then we will consider its Fourier IFT to get the time domain pulse. Here also we are doing the same thing. We say that we need a practical solution to obtain minimum intersymbol interference or 0 ISI. Then we'll make up the pulse in the frequency domain to have 3 parts: the pass band, stop band, and the transition band. So as you can see, the pass band is something whose value would be 1, and it ranges from 0 to f1. So as you can observe here, between 0 to f1, the amplitude of this pulse is 1. So this is your pass band region. Next comes the transition band. So this represents the transition band, that is between f1 and 2b0 minus f1. So from this point f1 to the point twice b0 minus f1, between this point, it represents the transition band, as you can see, because there is a transition happening from pass band to stop band. And in the stop band, the value of the signal is 0. You see, it has reached the stop band. Here, the value of the pulse is 0. In the pass band, it is 1. And in this band, in the transition band, you see, it is defined with a cosine. As you can see, 1 plus cos pi of f minus f1 divided by 2b0 minus 2f1. This uses a cosine pulse shape in the transition band. So you see, cosine, you remember how is a cosine represented? Maximum at 0, it reduces and it reaches to the minimum, and again this is the cosine shape. This shape exactly resembles that of the cosine from here to here. So the cosine shape is taken for the transition band of the pulse. The transition band of the filter or the transition band of the pulse uses this cosine shape. Hence the name it is, because of this it is called the raised cosine pulse. Okay. So because of this reason, this is called the raised cosine pulse. And please remember the definition of this pulse shape in the frequency domain. And in the time domain, this will result again in a sync pulse only. In the time domain, this will surely be a sync pulse again, but we have certain improvements of this sync pulse when compared to the previous sync pulse which we considered. Okay, we'll see what is that. Yeah, coming to this raised cosine spectrum, we have this roll-off factor alpha. If alpha is 0, as you can observe here, it results in a sudden fall from pass band to stop band. From 1 to 0, it jumps suddenly if this roll-off factor alpha can be what? 0. But it is impossible to get that. So if alpha is 0.5, the red colored spectrum line here, the raised cosine transition band, when alpha is 0.5, and if alpha is higher 1, you see the passband becomes smaller and it is taking more time to complete the transition. The transition from passband to stop band has taken more time or it is slower. Okay. Whereas at 0.5, it starts exactly like a normal low pass filter. It starts decreasing and it will reach the stop band within a shorter span of time. You see here the time span ranges from F1 to, what is this? 2B0 minus F1. So the transition will happen in a shorter time span. And how do we define this roll-off factor alpha? It is given by the equation 1 minus F1 by B0. So F1 is this point. As you can know, F1 is this point. B0 is here where the rectangular pulse would have reached 0. So 1 minus of F1 by B0 defines the roll-off rate or the roll-off factor alpha. So the sharpness of the filter transition band is controlled by alpha. As you can see, how quickly the filter falls or the sharpness of the transition band will be controlled by this. And the bandwidth required can be measured as B0 into 1 plus alpha. So this would be the bandwidth of the raised cosine filter or the raised cosine signal for getting minimal ISI or nearly zero ISI. Now, since we have defined this signal in the frequency domain first, what would be its equivalent in the time domain? Time domain representation should be done because it will give us the correct shape of the pulse. It will give us a visualization of the pulse. So what is the shape of this signal in the time domain? This we can obtain by taking inverse Fourier transform of P of f. So you take inverse Fourier transform of P of f, you get P of t. You can see P of t is sinc 2 bt into a cosine divided by a factor. So this sinc pulse surely ensures zero crossing at the desired sampling instance. So please remember, this is a sampling instant, right? This center point can be a sampling instant for this pulse, and the neighboring pulse will surely cross to 0 or it will pass through 0 in this instant. Similarly, if I have a neighboring pulse coming from this side, that will also pass through 0 at the required sampling instant. That is ensured by this sinc pulse shape. And this second part here, where we have a cosine divided by 1 minus 16 alpha square b naught square into t square. This factor is proportional to t square. So it is going to decrease as t increases. Okay. So it decreases as at the rate of 1 by t square. Sorry, it's a negative sign. So it decreases as 1 by t square such that the data receiving becomes relatively insensitive to sampling time errors. So the second term here will result in errors due to sampling, and it is going to decrease in proportion to the value 1 by t square. So as t increases, you will see this will decrease. So the error which occurs due to inaccuracy in the sampling times, due to improper sampling times, whatever error occurs, that error will be minimized by this second term, which is the result of the inverse Fourier transform of the raised cosine pulse. So this is about the raised cosine pulse shape. As you can observe here, with alpha is equal to 1, it is this blue waveform. With alpha equal to 0.5, it is this pink one, this one, okay, and this, and alpha equal to 0 corresponds to the red one, which results in more depth here. You see the crossing over at 0 occurs at the same for all three. So which one is best here? Either alpha equal to 1 or alpha equal to 0.5 turns out to be the best. Let's see what happens, how to choose this roll-off factor alpha. You can see that if you use a small value of alpha, if this alpha is small, it will give you higher bandwidth efficiency. Why? You saw what happens when alpha was small. With alpha 0, you got a perfect rectangular pulse shape. So the bandwidth is properly limited between 0 to B naught. So you got the perfect pulse shape limiting the bandwidth exactly between 0 to B naught. And when alpha became higher, at alpha is equal to 1, you see the bandwidth needed for this pulse shape is 2 times B naught. Can you see this pink waveform is ending at 2 B naught? So the smaller the alpha, the lower the bandwidth or higher bandwidth efficiency. The larger the alpha, what would be the benefits of having a large value of alpha? The filter design will be much simpler and it will have fewer stages, therefore easy to implement. So if you have alpha as 1 or 2, the filter design is not, there is no constraint. You don't have limitations for proper filter design. So you can design an efficient filter, easy circuit realization. Everything is possible. Okay. And it is less sensitive to the timing accuracy of the symbols. So it will become much less sensitive to the timing accuracy of the symbols if alpha is larger. Okay. So remember, this is the equation for the raised cosine pulse in the frequency domain, its representation in the frequency domain, then its bandwidth and its roll-off rate alpha. And next we spoke about the equivalent by taking inverse Fourier transform of the raised cosine pulse in frequency domain. You get the sinc pulse along with an additional multiplication factor which involves a cosine, and that additional multiplication factor will decrease at the rate of 1 by t square. Therefore, you see its falling rate is much faster, especially if you have a small alpha, you'll have very good bandwidth efficiency, but with larger alpha, circuit design becomes simpler and has lesser stages, and there will also be lower sensitivity to symbol timing inaccuracies. So all this will be the choice of roll-off factor. Next, we have to see how to design the signal for controlled ISI. Till now, we considered the Nyquist signal shape and raised cosine signal shape.